Weakness isn't what you think it is. You've been measuring it wrong your entire life. You think weakness is about being afraid, about hesitating, about not pushing hard enough. But every person who's ever called themselves weak has at some point done something genuinely hard. You've pushed through pain, you've faced fears, you've endured things that would break others. So why do you still feel weak? Why does life keep proving you can't hold your ground? Why do you collapse at the exact moments that matter most? The answer is going to make you uncomfortable, because weakness has nothing to do with strength. It has everything to do with a mental rule you've never been taught. A rule that separates warriors from people who just survive. And once you understand it, you'll realize you were never weak. You were just operating with broken instructions. Have you ever noticed how some people remain absolutely calm in chaos? How they make decisions without second guessing? How they move through life like they're reading from a script that everyone else is improvising? They're not smarter than you. They're not braver. They're not gifted with special genetics. They know something you don't. And today you'll discover exactly what it is. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary Japanese swordsman who fought over 60 duels and was never defeated, understood this principle at a level most people will never reach. He called it the difference between those who react to life and those who create it. Between those who are moved by circumstance and those who remain unmoved. Between weakness and what he called true strength. But here's the part that no one warns you about. This isn't about becoming tougher. It's about becoming someone fundamentally different, someone who operates by a completely different set of internal rules, and most people aren't willing to pay that price. Before I show you how this works, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment. What's the moment you froze when you needed to act? And what excuse did you tell yourself afterward? The story I'm about to tell you happened to Christopher. He was 34 years old, ran a small digital marketing agency in Austin with 3 employees. 7 years building the business from scratch, decent client base, consistent revenue, enough money to live comfortably. By every standard metric, Christopher had succeeded. But Christopher had a problem that was eating him alive. He couldn't handle pressure. The moment things got intense, a client angry, an employee confrontational, a pitch meeting going sideways, Christopher would freeze. His mind would race, his heart would pound, and he'd collapse into whatever response made the tension go away fastest. Apologies he didn't mean, agreements to things he couldn't deliver, promises that solved nothing but made the other person stop being upset. Christopher lived in constant anticipation of the next moment he'd have to hold his ground, and he already knew how it would go. He'd fold, he'd compromise. He'd tell himself it was about being flexible, or choosing my battles, or being the bigger person. But he knew the truth. He was weak, and weakness was costing him everything that mattered. His best employee quit 2 months ago, not because of money, because Christopher wouldn't back him up when a client was being unreasonable. Christopher sided with the client, threw his employee under the bus, and watched him walk out. The right thing to do was defend his team member. Christopher knew it in real time, did it anyway, chose the path that eliminated immediate tension and created lasting damage. His girlfriend left 3 weeks later, not because of anything dramatic, because she couldn't respect someone who never stood for anything, who bent every time life applied pressure, who had opinions until they became inconvenient, then discarded them to keep the peace. "You're a good person," she said, "but you're not a strong person, and I need someone strong." Christopher sat alone in his apartment on a Thursday night in September, replaying every moment he'd collapsed, and the pattern was undeniable. He wasn't weak in the sense of being unable to do hard things. He'd built a business. He'd worked 18-hour days. He'd survived being broke and scared and uncertain. But when pressure came from another human being, when someone challenged him, when conflict emerged, when he had to hold a position against resistance, he evaporated every single time, no exceptions. That night, Christopher did something he'd been avoiding for years. He searched for information about Miyamoto Musashi. The name kept appearing in books and articles about martial arts and philosophy. He found a translation of The Book of 5 Rings, started reading, and one passage stopped him cold. "In battle, if you make your opponent flinch, you have already won. The essence of strategy is to make the opponent's mind move. If your mind moves, you lose. If your mind stays still, you cannot be defeated. Christopher read it 20 times, and slowly something started to make sense. Musashi wasn't talking about physical combat. He was talking about internal state, about what happens in your mind the moment pressure arrives. Whether your mind moves, reacts, panics, scrambles, or whether it stays still. Christopher's mind always moved. The second someone raised their voice, the second tension appeared, the second conflict emerged, his mind would explode into reaction. Racing thoughts, spinning scenarios, calculating escape routes, searching for the response that would make the discomfort stop. And that was the moment he lost. Before he said a word, before he made a decision, the instant his mind moved, he'd already surrendered. Everything after that was just execution of surrender. What form would it take? What excuse would justify it? What rationalization would make it feel acceptable? Musashi had identified the exact mechanism of Christopher's weakness, and it had nothing to do with being afraid. Fear was just the symptom. The disease was a mind that moved. The Japanese had a term for this. Mushin. No mind. Not empty. Not thoughtless. Still, a mind that doesn't move when pressure arrives, doesn't react, doesn't scramble, just remains exactly where it was, observing, processing, responding from a position of stillness rather than reaction. But here's what made Christopher want to close the book and never think about it again. Mushin isn't a technique you practice. It's a state of being you cultivate through something Musashi called keiko, relentless, austere training in holding your ground against discomfort until your mind learns not to move. Christopher had spent 34 years training his mind to move. Every time he avoided conflict, every time he appeased someone to stop tension, every time he folded under pressure, he was teaching his nervous system. When pressure comes, we move, we react, we collapse. To develop Mushin, he'd have to retrain that response completely. And that meant deliberately walking into situations where his mind would want to move and forcing it to stay still. Christopher sat with this for 3 days without changing anything. He just watched himself, observed the pattern in real time. A client emailed with complaints. Christopher's mind immediately moved. Panic, calculation, drafting apologetic responses. He noticed it, didn't stop it, just watched. An employee questioned a decision in a team meeting. Christopher's mind moved. Defensiveness, justification, searching for the response that would end the challenge. He noticed it, let it happen. Watched. Someone cut him off in traffic. Mind moved. Anger, indignation, the desire to retaliate or at least express frustration. He noticed it. His mind moved constantly, at the slightest provocation, the smallest discomfort, any hint of tension. It moved. And every time it moved, Christopher lost something: control, dignity, respect, ground. On the 4th day, Christopher decided to run an experiment. A small client had been pushing boundaries for weeks. Constant scope creep, unreasonable demands, late-night calls expecting immediate responses. Christopher had been accommodating all of it, telling himself it was good customer service. But he knew it wasn't. It was weakness. The client called at 8:47 p.m. demanding urgent changes to a campaign that wasn't even launching for 2 weeks. Christopher's mind immediately began its familiar movement. Anxiety, the impulse to say yes, the rationalization that it's not that hard to just do what they want. But this time, Christopher did something different. He noticed his mind moving, and he made it stop. Not through force, not by suppressing the reaction. He just observed it, watched the panic arise, watched the impulse to please, watched the rationalizations form, and then he spoke from underneath all of that. That's not urgent. The campaign launches in 2 weeks. I'll review your notes tomorrow during business hours and get back to you by end of day Friday. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm paying you for service. I expect you to be available when I need you. Christopher's mind tried to move, tried to panic, tried to generate apologetic responses. He noticed it, stayed still. You're paying for professional service during agreed upon hours. What you're describing is different. If you need 24/7 availability, we can discuss that as a separate contract with different rates. But right now, I'll review your notes tomorrow. More silence. Then the client hung up. Christopher sat in his apartment, heart pounding, mind still trying to convince him he'd just destroyed a client relationship. But underneath the panic, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Solid, like he'd held ground instead of giving it away. The next morning, the client emailed. Not angry, respectful. Understood. Let me know what you think when you review. Christopher stared at the email for 5 minutes because he'd just learned something that contradicted everything he believed about managing people. When his mind stayed still, when he didn't collapse into appeasing, the other person's mind moved instead. They adjusted, they backed down, they accepted the boundary. Musashi was right. The person whose mind moves first loses, always. Day 7. Christopher tested it again. An employee, Sarah, challenged a decision in a meeting. Normally, Christopher's mind would move. Defensiveness, over-explanation, maybe even changing the decision to avoid the conflict. This time, he noticed the impulse, made his mind stay still. I hear your concern. The decision stands. If you'd like to discuss it further, we can talk one-on-one after this. Sarah looked surprised. She started to push back, then stopped. Okay, yeah, let's talk later. The meeting continued. No drama, no lengthy debate. Christopher had held his position without justifying it, without over-explaining it, without letting his mind move into reactive mode. The stillness itself had created the boundary. After the meeting, Sarah came to his office. Hey, I appreciate you not getting defensive in there. Old you would have spent 20 minutes explaining yourself. Old me had existed 7 days ago, but Sarah was right. Something was different. Christopher's mind was learning a new pattern. When pressure comes, stay still. Observe, respond from stillness, not reaction, but real tests don't announce themselves. Week 3. Christopher's biggest client, the one that represented 40% of his revenue, scheduled an emergency call. Their CMO was furious. A campaign had underperformed, metrics were down. They were questioning whether to continue the contract. Christopher joined the Zoom call, 3 of their executives on screen, all of them looking severe. The CMO started. Christopher, we need to talk about these results. Frankly, we're disappointed. This is not what we signed up for. We're considering our options. Old Christopher's mind would have exploded. Panic, desperation, scrambling to fix their perception, making promises he couldn't keep, offering discounts, doing whatever it took to keep them from leaving. Christopher felt all of that start to happen. His nervous system activated. His mind began to move, and he made it stop. He didn't suppress the panic, didn't fight it, just observed it, let it be there, and spoke from underneath it. I understand you're disappointed. Let's look at the data together and figure out what's actually happening. The CMO blinked. She'd expected groveling. We've already looked at the data. It's underperforming. Compared to what baseline? What was the expected range? What variables changed in the market? Let's actually analyze this instead of reacting to one bad week. Silence on the call. Christopher could see them exchanging glances. He just refused to accept their emotional narrative. Hadn't argued with it, hadn't defended himself, just stayed still and redirected to actual analysis. They spent 30 minutes going through the data. Turned out the underperformance was within normal variance. Their expectations had been unrealistic, based on seasonal trends. By the end of the call, the CMO said, "Okay, you're right. We overreacted. Let's continue and reassess next month." Christopher ended the call, sat in silence. His hands were shaking, his heart was pounding, but he'd held his ground. He'd kept his mind still when everything in him wanted to move, and because his mind didn't move, theirs did. They shifted. They accepted reality. They backed down from their emotional position. This was Mushin, not the absence of fear, not the absence of physiological response, the presence of a mind that doesn't move. Month 2. Christopher had been running this experiment for 8 weeks, deliberately putting himself in situations where his mind wanted to move. Client conflicts, employee challenges, uncomfortable negotiations. Every time, the same practice. Notice the impulse to react, make the mind stay still, respond from stillness. And something was happening that he hadn't expected. The practice was changing him at a level deeper than behavior. His baseline state was shifting. He was becoming someone whose mind didn't move easily. The stillness was starting to feel more natural than the reaction. His new employee, hired to replace the one who quit, said it directly. "You're different than other managers I've had. Most people get reactive when there's a problem. You just observe. It's kind of unsettling at first, but then you realize it makes everything calmer." Christopher's girlfriend, the one who left, reached out. They met for coffee. "I've heard things," she said. "People are saying you've changed, that you're less accommodating. Some think you've become cold. What do you think?" "I think you finally found your spine." She didn't want to get back together. Too much history. But she respected him now in a way she never had before. And Christopher realized that respect was more valuable than being liked. Being liked had cost him everything. Being respected, even if fewer people liked him, was building something solid. But month 3 brought a test that almost broke the system. Christopher's agency landed a massive pitch opportunity, a Fortune 500 company. If he won this, it would transform his business. The pitch was in person, high stakes, 3 other agencies competing. The night before, Christopher barely slept. Not because he was unprepared, because he knew what would happen. He'd walk into that room, face powerful executives, and his mind would want to move, would want to please, would want to be whoever they wanted him to be. And if his mind moved, he'd lose. Not necessarily the pitch, but himself. Morning of the pitch. Christopher stood in the bathroom of the office building, looked in the mirror, said one sentence out loud. "Your mind does not move." He walked into the conference room. 5 executives, expensive suits, impatient energy, the kind of people who could smell weakness and would exploit it immediately. Christopher presented his strategy. Midway through, the VP of marketing interrupted. "This approach feels too conservative. We need something aggressive, something that makes a statement." Old Christopher's mind would have moved, would have scrambled to adjust, would have abandoned his strategy to give them what they wanted in the moment. Christopher felt the impulse, noticed it, stayed still. Conservative isn't the right word. Strategic is. Aggressive without strategy is noise. What I'm showing you is how to make an aggressive impact through strategic precision. If you want to abandon precision for volume, there are other agencies who'll do that, but that's not what I'm offering. The room went quiet. The VP leaned back, smiled slightly. "Keep going." Christopher finished the presentation. Didn't change a word based on the interruption. Held his ground. The meeting ended. They said they'd be in touch. 2 days later, his phone rang. They wanted to move forward. Contract worth more than his entire previous year's revenue. And the VP's assistant told him something off the record. He said you were the only one who didn't bend. Everyone else adjusted their pitch to tell him what he wanted to hear. You told him what was actually true. That's why he picked you. Christopher had won by keeping his mind still, by refusing to move when pressure came, by being unmoved. This is Zanshin, remaining awareness, remaining spirit. The state where your mind stays present and still even when everything around you is chaos, even when someone is challenging you, even when you might lose something valuable. The mind remains unmoved, and from that unmoved position, you can actually see reality clearly and respond effectively. Most people lose before they even start, because their mind moves at the first hint of pressure. They react, they scramble, they compromise, and they call it flexibility or wisdom or being realistic. But it's just weakness with a more acceptable name. Month 6. Christopher looked at what his life had become. His business had doubled. Not because he'd become more skilled at marketing, because he'd become someone who didn't move under pressure. Clients respected him. Employees trusted him. Competitors avoided going up against him. But there was a cost. His oldest friend stopped calling, said Christopher had changed in a way that makes him hard to be around, said he was too intense now and not as fun as he used to be. The friend wanted the version of Christopher who bent, who accommodated, who made things easy. That person was gone. Christopher's family noticed too. At Thanksgiving dinner, his brother said, "You've gotten kind of rigid, like you can't just relax anymore. Everything feels like you're holding some kind of line." His mother chimed in, "Honey, it's okay to let your guard down. You don't have to be so controlled all the time." They were seeing the transformation, and it made them uncomfortable, because Christopher's stillness highlighted their constant movement. His refusal to react made their reactivity visible. His groundedness exposed their instability. And nobody likes being a mirror. Christopher could have explained. Could have told them about Mushin and Zanshin and the principle Musashi discovered, but he didn't, because explaining would be seeking their validation, and seeking validation means your mind has already moved. So he just said, "I know I'm different, and I'm okay with that." Month 9. Christopher sat in his office at 6 a.m., the city still dark, building silent. He'd been practicing this principle for 9 months. 9 months of deliberately keeping his mind still when pressure arrived, of refusing to move when everything in him wanted to scramble and react and please and accommodate. And he realized something had happened that he hadn't consciously noticed. He'd stopped practicing. The stillness wasn't something he was doing anymore, it was something he was. His baseline state had fundamentally changed. His mind no longer moved easily. It took significant force to dislodge it now, and most situations weren't significant enough. Musashi called this the final stage, when the warrior no longer has to remember to stay still. Stillness becomes default. The practice has transformed the practitioner completely. You're not someone who tries to keep your mind still. You're someone whose mind is still. The doing has become being. His employees noticed it first. Sarah said it directly. "You know what's strange? You never seem stressed anymore. Like, objectively stressful things happen. The big client almost left. That pitch could have failed. The cash flow crunch last month, and you just handle it without freaking out, without that desperate energy most bosses have." Christopher didn't tell her it's because his mind didn't move anymore. Didn't tell her that once you stop reacting to pressure, pressure stops having power over you. Didn't tell her about the 9 months of deliberate training. He just said, "I learned to stay still." She nodded like that made sense, but she didn't really understand. Because you can't explain Mushin to someone who still lives in a mind that moves constantly. It's like describing color to someone who's only seen in black and white. The language exists, but the experience doesn't translate. Year 1. Christopher looked back at who he'd been 12 months ago. The man who collapsed under pressure, who folded in every conflict, who lost employees, lost his girlfriend, lost respect, including his own, because he couldn't hold his ground. That person was dead, not improved, not working on it, replaced. And in his place was someone who moved through life differently. Someone whose mind stayed still when others' minds were racing. Someone who held positions not through force, but through simple refusal to move. Someone who discovered what Musashi knew: the person whose mind doesn't move cannot be defeated. People looked at him now with a mixture of respect and discomfort. "You've gotten harder," they'd say. Or, "You're not as warm as you used to be." Or, "You've lost some of your humanity." They thought these were criticisms. Christopher heard them as confirmation. He wasn't trying to be warm. He was trying to be unmoved. He wasn't trying to be soft. He was trying to be still. And stillness, real stillness, makes people uncomfortable because it forces them to feel their own constant internal movement, their own reactivity, their own weakness. Your stillness becomes their mirror, and most people hate what they see. You stop being someone who tries not to react and become someone who doesn't react. When that happens, people will look at you and think, something's different, and the answer will be simple. His mind doesn't move. When pressure comes, he stays exactly where he is. That's not a technique, that's identity. The question remains, are you ready for this level of transformation? Because it's not about becoming tougher. It's not about developing thicker skin. This is about fundamentally changing your baseline state. About training your mind to stay still when every instinct says to move. About becoming someone who cannot be dislodged by pressure, conflict, or challenge. Musashi's principle won't make you a better person. It'll make you a different person. Someone others will look at and think he's changed, or he's too intense now, or he's lost his flexibility. And when you hear those words, you'll know you've finally arrived. Because flexible people bend. Accommodating people move. Reactive people collapse. You're not trying to become a better version of weak. You're trying to become unmoved. And unmoved people make everyone else uncomfortable. If this video changed your perspective on what weakness actually is, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss future content that will transform you. And tell me in the comments, what's the one situation where you'll practice keeping your mind still for the next 7 days, no matter what pressure comes? Remember, when pressure arrives, your mind does not move. That's not discipline, that's identity. If you've watched this far, thank you very much for your attention. See you in the next video.